Two Geeks, Two Beers. Episode 40, Bruce Lee.
And who might you be changing him to, sweetheart?
You won't know him, but he's mustard.
Mustard? I don't care if he's Muhammad, Imard, Bruce Lee. You can't change fighters.
Thank you.
There you go. Smooth.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Two Geeks, Two Beers, with me, Morgan, and Tom.
Hello.
The Geeky Two. We're back kicking and screaming with a special episode all about the martial arts master, Bruce Lee.
And may I say a special episode? It's episode 40.
Episode 40,
So
is it?
It is a milestone.
I wasn't even keeping track.
It's not. No one really celebrates 40 like you do 50 or 25.
What is 40? Is that wood?
Let's just say it's wood.
Let's just say.
What does Bruce Lee punch? He probably punched wood in his time.
He probably well, actually, he wasn't a fan of that kind of thing.
Okay.
We'll get onto that.
All right. Well, happy 40th.
And let's just say we've got wood. Cheers. I want to make it all about you, Tom.
Ah.
What's been your relationship with Bruce? How much do you know about his life? How many of his movies have you seen?
I like the bit in The Office where they talk about Bruce Lee.
It is a very good scene.
But that's about it.
And Bruce Lee was filming. One of the extras just came over and just started a fight.
Oh yeah, I know this, and he was amazing at Kung Fu, but Bruce Lee just did a roundhouse on him.
Well, no, he smashed him through a wall. And instead of firing him, he just said, go back to where you were, let's get on with the filming.
Man, those cats were as fast as lightning.
You know when he's fighting Chuck Norris in Enter the Dragon?
No.
You not seen that?
No.
Have you not? I can't... That is a classic.
No, I've not seen him fight Chuck Norris in Enter the Dragon. I've seen him fight Chuck Norris in Way of the Dragon.
That's what I meant.
Is it?
Yeah.
Why did you say you'd seen him fight Chuck Norris in Enter the Dragon? He fights Bob Wall in both, but Norris is only in Way of the Dragon.
Yeah, I know. So when he's fighting Chuck Norris...
In what?
In Way of the Dragon.
Correct, at last.
You haven't seen any Bruce Lee movies?
I've seen loads of clips over the years. It's always referenced and things, and I think there was a bit in Wayne's World where he pops up. It's things like that.
I don't think actual Bruce Lee popped up.
But like a clip, like an archive clip. Right. But yeah, I've just never really. It's just never really passed. It's just totally passed me by. I've never really delved into the Bruce Lee history. So I'm hoping you'll teach me exactly why I should watch them all back.
Prepare to be schooled, karate schooled. Dragon, of course, was Bruce Lee's nickname, which brings us on to this episode's beers. It's Dragon Stout, which drinksupermarket.com says is an exceptionally dark stout that crams a lot of flavour into its small bottle. Prepare for flavours such as chocolate, rum, licorice and raisins.
Oh, wow.
Cheers.
All in one.
Do you want to taste that to me? Beer.
Stout, that, isn't it?
Stout. Tastes like a stout.
That description could have been, until the bit with licorice and stuff, a good description of Bruce Lee, because he packed a lot in quite a small frame.
Well, actually, very true. I'm surprised he's not a personal hero of yours, actually.
He's quite a short man.
He was a short man.
Yeah.
So, yeah, at his physical peak, Lee was thought to weigh just a little over 10 stone,
really?
Which isn't that much, and he was only 5'8" tall. But you wouldn't mess with him, would you?
Well, no. The thing I like about Bruce Lee is that whenever I see photos of him, he always seems to be a bit cheeky. I don't know if he was, I know nothing about him, but he always has a sort of look on his face of like, come on then, you really think you're going to beat me?
He did have a bit of well, he had a lot of charisma. He was a bit of a cheeky character, as we'll find out. So yes, Dragon Stout is this episode's beer, and as Bruce Lee might say, you put beer into a bottle, it becomes the bottle.
This is what it is, okay? I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
I mean, I have to admit, I've never really heard him talk before properly. I'm in love with him. Like, if he talked to me like that in a bar, I'd be like, have me.
He's got that little cheeky look.
Oh.
Be water, my friend.
Great guy.
What I love about that is he's talking about, you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup, yeah. Put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle, yeah. Teapot. I like that he went for teapot.
Yeah.
A little teapot. Shorthand, stout. Cheers.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to say
Yeah.
before we launch into this episode properly is I'm going to be obviously saying a lot of Chinese names.
Okay,
and
yeah.
my Chinese pronunciation is not practiced and will
Never
almost
will.
certainly be shocking throughout. So I do apologise in advance and hope you can appreciate that I'm approaching this very much as an amateur.
Yeah.
I'm doing my best, but I apologise if I say anything incorrectly. So the way I got into Bruce Lee was I was quite into martial arts as a kid.
I mean, I look at you and I think martial arts.
Sure, right. Well, so I studied karate. Me and one of my best mates, we used to take
What, the books? Yeah, you got the books out of the library?
No, we went to go to karate classes.
Oh, right.
It's genuinely true. I used to go
What,
to karate
2 classes?
No, mate, I went for like a year. Do you know what it was? So no, this is actually true. I am a green belt.
Oh.
Did you know this about me?
I don't know if green's good or not.
It is good. It's halfway to black. Genuinely, it is halfway to black. So don't mess. Next time we're arguing about the ranking of the Die Hard movies, bear that in mind. But I gave it up in the end because it got a bit too sort of intense. At first, it was just like, you know,
It's the easy moves.
learning the moves. Then it was like weapons, and I got a little bit weirded out.
Too aggressive.
It was a little too aggressive. Martial arts. Who'd have thought it? So anyway, me and my best mate were into our martial arts, and of course, who is the king of martial arts? The biggest martial arts icon of all time.
Jackie Chan.
Well, no. It's obviously it is
Bruce Lee.
It is Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
So we became obsessed with watching Bruce Lee movies, reading Bruce Lee books, and watching Bruce Lee documentaries. The whole thing. Bruce Lee, obviously, he's a martial artist. He's also a philosopher, as we just heard. An actor, director, screenwriter, and producer. He was a pop culture icon of the 20th century. Widely considered one of the most influential martial artists of all time, and he's often credited as well with helping to change the way that Asians were represented in American films. As you mentioned, possibly only Jackie Chan is as well known globally in the martial arts cinema field. And Jackie Chan actually got his start working as a stuntman on Bruce Lee movies.
Oh.
But of course the two men and their screen personas are very different. Chan himself once said, "Bruce hit serious, I hit funny." Although the literal meaning of Chan's Chinese stage name is "Become the Dragon," showing his admiration for Lee.
Yeah,
He looked
good,
up to him.
Good.
So Bruce Lee was born, I'm taking you right back. Bruce Lee was born Lee Jun Fan. The English name of Bruce is thought to have been given to him by the hospital attending physician. He was born on November the 27th, 1940, in Chinatown, San Francisco. So he was actually born in America.
Oh, did not know that.
He was of Chinese ancestry and held dual nationality in both Hong Kong and the US. And according to the Chinese zodiac, he was born in both the hour and the year of the dragon, which is very cool.
Had to be.
Yeah. His parents were from Hong Kong, and Lee's father was Cantonese opera star and film actor Lee Hoi Chuen. And his parents returned to Hong Kong with Lee when he was 3 years old, and he lived in Kowloon in Hong Kong until his late teens. But the neighbourhood, this almost sounds like it could be the plot of one of his movies, the neighbourhood in which Lee grew up became overcrowded, dangerous, and full of gang rivalries due to an influx of refugees fleeing communist China for Hong Kong. The name of Lee's gang was the Tigers of Junction Street, which I love. Sounds like West Side Story. The Tigers. We're the Tigers.
See?
After losing several fights with rival gang members, like this. So let's say you were getting into fights as a teen.
Yeah.
What would your parents say?
Don't get into fights.
Leave it. Just don't get into scraps. Not Lee's parents. They decided that 16-year-old Lee needed to be trained in the martial arts. They're like, you're losing fights. Get it sorted. So Lee trained in the art of Wing Chun under the legendary Ip Man.
Ah, yes. So I actually, of the few martial arts films I've seen quite a lot of the Ip Man films. Bloody brilliant.
Because Ip Man's life, was made into a series of films starring Donnie Yen.
Yeah, and it goes into the whole Bruce Lee thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And so Bruce Lee became a skilled martial artist, but he got a little too good. And his continued gang fights, which he was now winning, attracted the attention of the police. So
Sting was involved.
yeah, he was like, Bruce, Bruce, pack it in. So Lee's parents decided to send the now 18-year-old to the US to stay with his older sister in San Francisco. Lee graduated high school in Seattle and later enrolled at the University of Washington, majoring in drama. So you can see where
the flamboyant sort of
yeah,
persona he's got,
and a little taste of the acting.
Yeah,
and also studied philosophy. And it was there that he met his future wife, Linda Emery.
My future wife.
My future wife, Linda. His future wife, Linda Emery, who was a fellow student. Bruce and Linda married in August 1964 and had 2 children, Shannon Lee and their first child, Brandon Lee. Brandon, of course, went on to have a tragically short-lived movie career of his own.
Yes.
I heard a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. You heard me rapping, right?
Let's get down to the martial arts of it all.
Okay.
Lee began teaching martial arts shortly after arriving in the US and would go on to open martial arts schools and studios across America. He developed his own martial arts philosophy known as Jeet Kune Do, or the way of the intersecting fist.
From the sounds of it, can you just, I mean, obviously it helps if you're Bruce Lee, but can you just start up your own martial arts? Like, Way of the Otter.
I think if enough people are interested, you're like, hey, I got this new thing. It's called Way of the Otter, and enough people want to learn it. Yeah, you can pretty much.
Sounds like something else.
The Way of the Otter.
Yeah.
Sounds like it might be a sex act.
You wouldn't want to promote it.
Lure people in. Yeah, it's definitely a martial art. The Way of the Otter. Then something a little different. I like both the Tigers of Junction Street and The Way of the Intersecting Fist. Both sound like great names for kung fu movies.
Or shit bands.
Or shit names for bands, yeah.
Shit 80s bands.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, the Tigers of Junction Street. Yeah, I can imagine that. So, Lee took the view that traditional martial arts techniques were too rigid and formalistic to be practical in scenarios of chaotic street fighting.
Yeah.
It's always that thing. I did always think that in kung fu movies. It's like, well, they come in one at a time.
Yeah.
And it's like, well,
yeah. The other guy just sort of stands there waiting patiently for his turn.
Waiting for his turn.
Just hit him in the back. He's right there.
So, unlike more traditional martial arts, Jeet Kune Do is not fixed or patterned. The idea of Bruce's martial art was to exist outside of parameters and limitations, and Jeet Kune Do practitioners believe in minimal movement with maximum effect. Lee also developed his own signature tricks and moves, including 2-finger push-ups.
What?
Which sounds like a punk band. 2-finger push-ups. He would do 2-finger push-ups using the thumb and index finger of one hand. I can't even do proper push-ups.
No.
I have to do the thing.
Chance.
I have to do it on my knees.
Yeah.
And of course, the famous 1-inch punch. You know about this?
No.
Where Lee would deliver a punch to his opponent with his fist, if you can picture this, 1 inch away from their chest.
Yeah.
And without pulling back, without retracting his arm, he would just like their presence was nothing. He would just go straight through. And such was his strength that he would send them like flying backwards.
I thought you meant his fist went through their body, like grabbed the heart and then pulled it out.
Like Mortal Kombat. Yeah. Such was his strength. He just, flesh and bone and sinew was nothing to him. Was nothing to the fist of Bruce Lee. No, although close. So one volunteer, Bob Baker of Stockton, California, said, "When he punched me, I had to stay home from work because the pain in my chest was unbearable."
I love that.
So it's like
unbearable.
It's like for days.
I love
if
that.
Bruce Lee hits you, you're done for days.
Hi, yeah, it's Bob again. I'm not coming to work today because Bruce Lee punched me. Fair enough. Yeah, take the week off, mate. Yeah.
Bob, take as much time as you need.
Whereas if it was Jean-Claude Van Damme, it'd be like 3 days off.
Right, you've had your JCVD.
Yeah, but
Lou.
you get a week if it's Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
5 days, Jackie Chan. Yeah.
It's a sliding scale. So that's the martial arts, but let's talk about the movies.
Yeah.
So Lee was actually introduced to the film industry by his father, who was a famous actor, and he appeared in several films as a child actor.
Yeah.
However, as an adult in the US, he initially had no plans to pursue a movie career. However, I've said however twice. I say but. But a martial arts exhibition on Long Beach in 1964 caught the eye of TV producer William Dozier, which led to Lee playing Kato, sidekick to superhero the Green Hornet in the TV series of the same name.
I never noticed. It's him, isn't it?
Bruce Lee. Yeah, the show ran for one season from September 1966 to March 1967.
What a coup.
Another challenge for the Green Hornet. His aide, Cato, and their rolling arsenal, the Black Beauty. On police records, a wanted criminal, the Green Hornet is really Britt Reed, owner publisher of the Daily Sentinel. His dual identity known only to his secretary and to the district attorney. And now, to protect the rights and lives of decent citizens, rides the Green Hornet.
Impossible, apparently, to say just Green Hornet. Has to be Green Hornet.
Looks far better than the dodgy remake starring Seth Rogen.
The piss poor movie. Yeah. That film was originally going to star Stephen Chow.
Great guy.
As Cato.
Chow in soccer.
He was also supposed to direct the movie. Prior to that, it was going to be Jet Li as well. But yeah, no, that movie.
Just came and went.
Let's just pretend that didn't happen. So after the Green Hornet was cancelled, Lee went on to make small appearances in movies and on TV, and also worked behind the scenes as a fight choreographer in Hollywood. But he wasn't happy with the supporting roles he was getting in the US, so he returned to Hong Kong, unaware that the Green Hornet, you've got to say that, had been playing to great success in Hong Kong, and it made him a star.
There you go.
And he was surprised to be recognised on the street. They called it the Cato Show, because they were like, yes, my man, it's Cato. And he was suddenly like a huge deal, and he had no idea.
The Cato Show.
The Cato Show.
Quite work, does it?
No. So Lee quickly signed a film contract to star in 2 films produced by Golden Harvest, and his Chinese screen name was Li Sulong. Sulong meaning Little Dragon. So he played his first leading role in 1971's The Big Boss. The film was written for Hong Kong action star James Tien. However, when the film's original director was replaced by a new director, Lo Wei, he gave Lee the leading role instead. And history was made.
Superheroes, supervillains, and super movies, but there has never been anything like karate and kung fu. And Bruce Lee, he's the man with the fists of fury. Karate and kung fu, the new screen excitement you've been waiting for. Introducing the incredible heroics of Bruce Lee. Every limb of his body is a lethal weapon against an army of men, the most sensual of women, and the most savage of beasts. Karate and kung fu. The explosive combination that gives you the biggest kick of your life. Fists of Fury.
I like that there was a time where people just didn't know what karate and kung fu were. It's like, I got this new thing. Karate. Like, whoa.
But it was around that time that it helped get Kung Fu Fighting by Carl Douglas a hit.
Kung Fu Fighting? Yeah. Well, that's a little later. We will get onto that. So the film follows Cheng, played by Bruce Lee, a young Chinese man who has sworn an oath of non-violence. He moves to Thailand. Can you guess where this is going? He moves to Thailand to work with his cousins in an ice factory. When his family mysteriously...
an ice factory?
An ice factory. Right. When his family mysteriously begin to disappear, Cheng uncovers a criminal conspiracy, and it's not long before he's forced to unleash the dragon. Unleash the dragon. Cisco.
2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, hey, hey. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey, what's going on?
Good job, man. Come on, we're celebrating. Company halt. Dismissed. Hurry.
Well, go on. Huh? Why all the celebration?
Listen, great news. Cheng here is our new foreman.
He's just been promoted.
Now, Kuhn, tell me, how did this all come about?
Oh, you could say we had some industrial unrest.
Industrial unrest?
Yep.
Really, I think you're just having fun. Isn't that right?
It's like this. I was having an argument with the foreman. He hit me right across the face. That started a big fight. Everybody got in it. Terrible. A real battle with sticks and knives. And then some thugs got into it. And that made it worse. 1, 2, 3, 4. We were falling all over the place until at last Brother Ching got into it and saved the day. That's all. He's a great fighter. And you should see how it gets.
So what you couldn't see there was like the lads.
Bruce and the lads.
Coming back.
1, 2, 3, 4.
But it's better dubbed, is it? Like that?
Right. If you're watching, my personal... Well, for one thing, I couldn't put an undubbed version on my podcast.
Oh, no.
For another thing, I like to watch Bruce Lee movies dubbed. Because if you're watching, a 4-hour Russian epic, you want subtitles. You want to feel all intellectual and watch subtitles. If you're watching a good old martial arts movie, the dubbing's part of the fun.
Too much.
And the bad dubbing is part of the fun.
Yeah.
Talking about fun, Bruce didn't have much. He apparently did not enjoy making the movie. He described Pak Chon, the town where the film was shot, as an utter hell. He also sliced open the index finger of his right hand. How do you think he did that?
Punch someone?
Nah.
Oh.
Washing a glass.
That old chestnut.
Yeah. The wound required 10 stitches. Lee also objected some of the martial arts movie cliches that he was forced to sort of carry out in the film, such as the use of trampolines and mattresses to propel people through the air, that whole thing. And also a scene, talking about, at the beginning of the episode, talking about, wood. Nice segue. There's a scene in which Cheng punches a man through a wooden wall, leaving his outline in the wood. And Bruce didn't like that. He said, nah, that's cheesy, I don't want to do that. But the director stuck to his guns, and it's in the finished movie.
That's a lot of fun, isn't it?
During shooting of the final scene, in which Cheng confronts the big boss, Bruce endured 2 days of hell when he sprained his ankle from a high jump and had to be driven to Bangkok to see a doctor, where he caught a virus in the hot and stuffy conditions, and he lost 10 pounds.
Bloody hell.
Close-ups had to be used to finish the fight because Bruce was struggling and had to drag his leg around.
Lazy.
But it was all worth it. The Big Boss was a critical success and excelled at the box office, making Bruce Lee famous across Asia, even more famous. Rumour has it that when the film was first screened in Hong Kong, a stunned silence followed it for a few seconds that was followed by complete uproar. So there's nothing in it.
That's what you want, isn't it?
Yes! Yeah. And Bruce Lee was apparently mobbed as he tried to leave the theatre. So, of course, he did a second movie. He had a 2-movie contract. Fist of Fury in 1972, which broke box office records set previously by the Big Boss.
But I thought that one was called Fist of Fury.
Right. Sidebar.
No, it's another zombie thing, isn't it?
You may have noticed that the trailer for the Big Boss referred to it as Fists of Fury.
Right.
While, confusingly, the trailer for Fist of Fury refers to it as The Chinese Connection. Now, the Big Boss was being prepared for American distribution, and the US release was, they decided to retitle it as The Chinese Connection, a play on the film The French Connection with Gene Hackman. Since both of the films dealt with drug trafficking.
Right.
So this is a way American audiences will get this. The US title of Lee's second film, Fist of Fury, they thought, we'll change it to Fists of Fury, but apart from that, fine.
Okay.
However, there was a cock-up. They mixed up the two titles somehow. I don't know how that happens. Someone was asleep on the job that day. Someone got fired. And so the Big Boss was released as Fists of Fury, and Fist of Fury became The Chinese Connection. But recent TV screenings and the current official DVD release from 20th Century Fox as part of the Bruce Lee Ultimate Collection box set have restored the original titles of all the films, and I'm going to refer to them as, the first one's The Big Boss, the second one is Fist of Fury. It's just, I think that's what purists say, that's what I'm sticking to.
Fair enough.
So, in Fist of Fury, 1972, Lee plays Chen Zhen, who fights to defend the honour of the Chinese in the face of foreign aggression and to bring to justice those responsible for his master's death.
He's unstoppable, unbeatable, unbelievable. sees Bruce Lee, the master of karate, kung fu, delivering the Chinese connection. Bruce Lee, the Oriental superstar who exploded across the screens of America in the phenomenally successful Fists of Fury, is back to defend the honor of his nation and the love of his woman. Using his furious fists and superhuman strength, he breaks them up, smashes them down, and kicks them apart.
Yeah, two things from taking from that.
Yeah, well, one thing I want to say, what you couldn't see there was Bruce Lee kicking a man in the neck. Kicks him in the neck. Nasty.
One thing, I like the fact that they, in both those trailers, they had to shoehorn in, there's romance and the love of his woman. Anyway, back to the fight. And the second one used the 2001 A Space Odyssey score. The Strauss piece.
You had to let that out. But you know what, I've seen 2001 A Space Odyssey.
Yeah, it's alright.
I'd rather watch Fist of Fury, if I'm honest. Kubrick? Nah, give me Lee. Every time. So this was the first film where Bruce Lee wielded his famous nunchucks. And also, apparently, might need some citation on this, but apparently it was their first use on film. Oh. First time anyone ever saw the use of nunchucks in cinema. And in one famous scene, Bruce uses his nunchaku to take on an opponent armed with a katana. Though he openly admitted that in real life...
This is katana. They've ruined the word katana.
This is katana! She's got my back! Her sword takes the souls of its victims!
Oh my god.
Fucking Suicide Squad.
This is Katana. She's got my back. She can cut all you in half with one sword stroke, just like mowing the lawn. I would advise not getting killed by her. Her sword traps the souls of its victims.
Though, Bruce openly admitted that in real life, nunchaku versus a katana was an uneven match and should be avoided. It's like,
you're not going to win this.
Don't try.
Well, I will because I'm Bruce Lee, but
exactly.
Anyone else, don't even try.
I love that you go to this, like, that scene where I fight a man with a sword using my nunchucks. Don't try it at home. Who would? I was going to give that a try.
You and your little mate when you were doing karate, like, bring your katana around. I've got my nunchucks.
I just told you that weapons scared us.
Was that why you left?
Yeah.
You got, right, everyone's got their katana. You brought your katana with you? Stan, did you not bring a katana? You have to leave, I'm afraid.
You've rumbled me. That leads us on to Bruce Lee's third film, which was 1972's Way of the Dragon. Released in the United States as Return of the Dragon, for some reason. They just couldn't leave it alone.
Yeah.
Had to fiddle with it.
At least not Dragon Redemption or...
Bruce Lee Retaliation. Yeah. For this film, Lee was given complete creative control of the film's production. He was the writer, director, star, and choreographer of the fight scenes.
After Fist of Fury, the big boss, Enter the Dragon. Now, the ultimate, the Way of the Dragon.
Dragon whips his tail.
Starring Bruce Lee conquering evil in Rome and using all his fighting skills in this authentic martial arts adventure.
They will kill you.
Kill me? Who?
The Way of the Dragon with superstar Bruce Lee as Tang Long and co-starring some of the world's greatest fighters. Chuck Norris, 7 times world karate champion. Robert Wall, the 1970 #1 karate professional. Wong In-sik, Korean master of Hapkido. All in The Way of the Dragon. Bruce Lee's greatest achievement as star, director, and scriptwriter, The Way of the Dragon.
I forget that Chuck Norris was an actual thing. Like, he was an actual really good, like, martial artist. His prime.
Yeah. So, in this film, Bruce plays Tang Lung, a martial artist visiting his relatives at a restaurant in Italy, who has to help defend them against brutal gangsters who are harassing them.
Hey, you guys, come over here.
This is Tang Lung. Hey, introduce yourselves.
I'm Tony. Jimmy. Thomas.
Robert. I have no English name, just call me Archie.
Hello there.
Me and my mate Sam. We loved all those guys, but Jimmy was always our favourite. Jimmy! Little raise of the eyebrows.
Sort of Scottish.
Jimmy! Jimmy was always our favourite. So the film is probably most famous for a climactic battle at the Colosseum between Tang and the American martial artist Colt, played by
Chuck Norris.
So Lee had met karate champion Norris in 1964 at a demonstration in Long Beach, California. As you say, he's not just a punchline.
Yeah.
At that point,
he knew what he was doing.
He was a proper hard bastard, Chuck Norris. Yeah. In Way of the Dragon, Lee introduced Norris to moviegoers as his opponent in the final death fight. This is from Wikipedia, but I like the phrase death fight. At the Colosseum in Rome. It's today considered one of Lee's most legendary fight scenes and one of the most memorable fight scenes in martial arts film history. It's one of the best fight scenes of all time.
Deal with it.
Deal with it.
I enjoyed working with Bruce Lee in the film. It was a lot of fun. The fight scene is considered the classic martial art fight scene of all time. So it's nice to be involved in in a fight scene that everyone. In fact, I got a letter. I've gotten thousands of fan letters from that movie, and I got a letter one time. A guy wrote, because there's a scene where I throw Bruce to the ground and he grabs the hair on my chest and he pulls it out, right? Well, of course he doesn't for real, but I get a letter from this man and he says he and his son had seen Return of the Dragon 26 times, and because of the fight scene. But he says, did Bruce really pull the hair out of your chest? He said, if he did, you're really a stud.
I like how softly spoken and polite Chuck Norris seems. He's a nice man, despite the fact that if you shave Chuck Norris's beard, there's no face, just another fist. The film Way of the Dragon features Norris's only on-screen death. And Norris later admitted that he could never have beaten Bruce Lee in a fair fight. So, and that's coming from Chuck Norris.
Yeah.
So he was like, if I'm going to die on screen,
might as well be Bruce Lee.
Gotta be Bruce, it takes me out.
Yeah.
So, this now leads us on to 1974's Enter the Dragon. Ooh.
Roper, Williams, and Lee, the Deadly Three, penetrate the secret chambers of an evil island empire.
What do you know about Han? He lives like a king on that island, totally self-sufficient.
A fortress without walls, protected by an invincible army that needs no ordinary weapons. This is Enter the Dragon, the first martial arts film produced by a major Hollywood studio. John Saxon is Roper. He was in it for the money. U.S. karate champion Jim Kelly as Williams. He was there because he had no choice. Black Belt Hall of Fame undisputed martial arts champion and international film star Bruce Lee. His job was to get them out alive.
I'm hoping you'll join us, represent us in the United States.
You want me to join this?
Roper, Williams, and Lee. Just when they think they've broken the secret of the island, they find there is no escape from the inscrutable Han. Warner Brothers presents Enter the Dragon, where the world's greatest martial arts athletes meet the ultimate challenge with the most ancient and deadly of weapons, the human body. Enter the Dragon from Warner Brothers.
So that film was Enter the Dragon, in case you missed it.
Not Way of the Dragon.
Not Way of the Dragon. He fights Bob Wall in both, but Norris is only in Way of the Dragon. So, Warner Brothers, after seeing Lee's success in Hong Kong, they offered him the opportunities to star in Enter the Dragon, which was the first kung fu film to be produced by a major Hollywood studio.
Yeah.
And with a budget unprecedented for the genre of $850,000. A lot of money back then.
Yeah.
A lot of money. Filming began in Hong Kong in January 1973. And the plot is quite sort of James Bond-esque, which is maybe why I love this film so much.
Just watching that trailer, it had a bit of early Bond, sort of Roger Moore era Bond.
Bondian element to it. The film casts Bruce Lee as Lee, a martial artist who agrees to spy on reclusive Can't say that. On reclusive crime lord.
Very good. You had to say that like Michael Caine to get it out.
Bruce Lee is a martial artist who agrees to spy on reclusive crime lord Han.
So from now on, if you ever have a time,
if I ever struggle,
just Michael Caine it.
Cane it, just absolutely cane it. So, Bruce Lee plays a martial artist who agrees to spy on the reclusive crime lord Han, using his invitation to a tournament on Han's private island as cover. Apropos of nothing, here's a classic scene where Lee chastises a young student.
Kick me. Kick me. What was that? An exhibition? We need emotional content. Try again. I said emotional content, not anger. Now try again. With me. That's it. How did it feel to you? Let me think. Don't think. Feel. It is like a finger pointing away to the moon. Don't concentrate on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory. Do you understand? Never take your eyes off your opponent, even when you bow. That's it.
I feel like his first little diss there, it should be a meme.
Yeah.
Sort of the slow build up and then, what was that? What was that?
What was that?
What was that? So, the film stars Bruce Lee as Lee, but it's unusual in that he's not the sole lead. There's a trio of leads.
I have to admit, I have not heard of the other two guys.
Right, so John Saxon, he was an established TV and film actor. His other best known role, he plays the dad of the lead heroine in Nightmare on Elm Street. But he was actually a black belt in karate, which is why he was hired. And he plays Roper. And the other guy was Jim Kelly, who at the time was the international middleweight karate champion. He plays the character of Williams, and much as we are the Geeky Two, they were known as the Deadly Three. So one review at the time said, while Kelly was a famous martial artist and a surprisingly good actor, and Saxon was a famous actor and a surprisingly good martial artist, Lee proves to be a master of both fields.
Yeah.
And there are many memorable moments in the movie. Lee's fight with a stuntman, Bob Wall, and his final face-off with Han actor Shi Kien in a hall of mirrors, where he smashes the mirrors to try and find the real Han that's kind of frequently imitated,
John Wick,
parodied.
Yeah.
John Wick is a good example of that. But my favourite scene in this movie doesn't actually involve Bruce Lee at all. It involves the character of Williams, played by Jim Kelly, and Williams is incredible. He's like a ninja with an afro. And he's such a cool dude. And in his final scene...
Not Afro Ninja, which is a totally different meme.
But
remember Afro Ninja?
I remember Afro Ninja, but he basically is Afro Ninja. And in his final scene, in which he and Han face off, it may well be... Predator is my favourite movie, as we discussed in the Predator episode, but this may well be, genuinely, my favourite movie scene of all time. The dialogue is incredible. I know it word for word. I hope you enjoy it.
Mr. Han, you fought well yesterday. Your style is unorthodox, but effective. It is not the art, but the combat that you enjoy. The winning. We are all ready to win, just as we are born knowing only life. It is defeat that you must learn to prepare for. I don't waste my time with it. When it comes, I won't even notice. Oh, how so? I'll be too busy looking good. What were you looking for when you attacked my guards? Wasn't me. You were the only man outside the palace. I was outside, But I wasn't the only one.
You will tell me who else.
Mr. Han, suddenly I like to leave your island.
It is not possible.
Bullshit, Mr. Handman. Man, you come right out of a comic book.
I just love that scene.
Yeah.
I'll be too busy looking good.
And he does, he's right.
Yeah, looks good.
Yeah. Is he still with us?
No, sadly, Jim Kelly, he died of cancer in 2013, aged 67. Have a drink to Jim. Cheers.
Cheers, Jim.
But after Enter the Dragon, Jim Kelly would go on to become one of the blaxploitation genre's biggest stars. In Enter the Dragon, little trivia fact, little nugget, both Jackie Chan, that we talked about earlier, and Sammo Hung from Martial Law. You know Martial Law?
No.
You don't know about Martial Law?
No.
Oh my god. Martial Law was like this show that was on in the 90s. It was like a kung fu cop show. Right. It was like a terrible Rush Hour rip-off.
Okay.
Oh my god.
No, totally passed about that one.
Right. Well, we'll do an episode about martial law. We won't.
Maybe episode 809.
if we get desperate. But Sammo Hung was the star of Martial Law. He played Sammo.
CBS Saturday. The LAPD's dream team is going to the track to investigate a murder. And you won't believe what Sammo does to get his man. Martial Law. Then, someone's kidnapping beautiful young models and selling them over the internet.
Can't wait to get my hands on that guy. I prefer my feet.
Walker in America's Night of Heroes, CBS Saturday.
And they both Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung appear as stuntmen battling Lee in the movie. It's like, you know when Expendables came out and it's like, oh, what would it be like if Sylvester Stallone fought Stone Cold Steve Austin? Yeah. And this is like, people are like, what would it be like if Bruce Lee fought Jackie Chan? Well, we saw it and Bruce Lee kicked his ass. It's in Enter the Dragon.
No one cared.
Everyone missed it. It's already happened. Okay, so sadly, only a few months after the completion of Enter the Dragon, and 6 days before its July 1973 release, July 26th, 1973, Bruce Lee died. So he never knew.
It's crazy, isn't it?
So that film, it went on to become one of the year's highest grossing films. It cemented Lee as a martial arts legend. He was already a big deal in Asia, but this made him a global superstar. It was made for, as we said, $850,000, which is equivalent to about $4 or $5 million. Yeah. So it's not a lot of money, even so. And to date has grossed over $200 million worldwide. Okay, he was a huge movie star, but he never quite knew, I don't think...
The James Dean of his era.
He never quite knew what an icon he would become globally. He never quite knew how big that movie would be, which I think is very sad.
How did he die?
So, on May the 10th, 1973, Lee collapsed when he was doing some ADR, some dialogue replacement for Enter the Dragon. He was suffering from seizures and headaches, and was rushed to Hong Kong Baptist Hospital, where doctors diagnosed cerebral edema, which is basically a build-up of fluid in the brain. But it wasn't considered life-threatening. It was just, that's not good, but obviously we'll keep an eye on it, we'll treat you. But on July 20th, Lee again complained of a headache. He took a painkiller and decided to just lie down for a nap. He was supposed to meet film producer Raymond Chow for dinner that night. He didn't show up, so Chow went round to visit Lee. And when he found him, he was unable to wake him up. Lee was rushed to hospital, but was declared dead on arrival.
How old was he?
He's just 32. So
I mean, I'm 32 in a couple of months, and I will never be as big a man as he ever was.
No, I'll never be as big a man as he ever was. No, but in all seriousness, it's mad, isn't it?
That's crazy.
To think that Bruce Lee was barely a little older than us when he died, and how much he'd done, but also how much he had left to do.
But it's one of those things where, like you look at someone like him who died so young, and he'd only done a few things, and you think, what would he have done?
Right.
Would love to have known what he would have gone on to be in and do,
but I guess
you never know though. That could have been it. That could have been his peak, and he never did anything again.
But again, but it's also as sad as it is that he went. It's also one of those things
keeps you iconic.
Exactly, where he's always that.
James Dean's always James Dean.
James Dean's always James Dean. Bruce Lee will always be that. He didn't fade
a fat mess like Maradona.
Exactly. He didn't fade into obscurity. He went out at his absolute peak.
Yeah.
Tragic as it is. So Raymond Chow, that producer, he later stated, that Bruce Lee had an allergic reaction to the painkiller, which may have killed him, but his demise was officially ruled as death by misadventure. His iconic status and untimely demise fed many wild rumours and theories. These included murder by the triads and a supposed curse on him and his family. But of course, that's all nonsense. Yeah. So, actually, I think this is talking about kind of his legacy. I think that's almost one of the most interesting parts of the Bruce Lee story. So his death was only the beginning. So first of all, we should probably talk about Game of Death. Do you know about this?
No.
So before he filmed Enter the Dragon, Lee had begun working on his 4th film for Golden Harvest, Game of Death. He'd shot some sequences for the film, including a fight sequence with 7'2" American basketball star Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Yeah. just from his stats, you were like, I knew Kareem.
My boy Kareem.
Classic Kareem. It's got to be Kareem. And this film would have been great. So in addition to Abdul-Jabbar, guess who else was going to be in the original Game of Death?
Jackie Chan?
No. Jackie Chan was already in Enter the Dragon. No. Alright, think what do I love? Who would be great to be in it?
Tom Baker?
No, the other one.
Oh, Roger Moore.
No, but
Connery.
Keep going.
Dalton.
Keep going.
Brosnan.
Keep going.
Daniel Craig.
You've literally named them all.
Oh, who have I missed? Oh, Lazenby.
George Lazenby. George
Lazenby.
Apparently, George Lazenby.
It's like Daniel Craig's must be 2.
Wasn't even born. Right, so you know that period where George Lazenby got a beard and he was like, lovely.
Yeah,
James
he looked like
Bond
Chris Christopherson.
Touchy-feely, yeah, right. He looked a bit like George Harrison meets Chris Christopherson. At that point, he got very much into his martial arts and he was into all that. So he would have been in the original Game of Death.
Amazing.
So the original film would have culminated in Lee's character, Hai Tien, who in the film wears the sort of now iconic, the yellow tracksuit with the black stripe.
Yeah. So that's in this film?
Yeah, that's in this film.
But that's the most famous Bruce Lee outfit.
I don't know why though, but yeah, it is. Yeah, the classic outfit.
It's really weird.
And in this film, it would have ended with Bruce Lee's character taking on a series of different challengers on each floor as he makes his way through a 5-level
like a video game
pagoda, like a video game, or a bit like The Raid.
Yeah,
the amazing kung fu movie that came out much later. It's sort of an early version of that idea. So when Bruce Lee died, so they offered him the chance to make Enter the Dragon. He was like, I'm off to Hollywood. I'll come back to this. This'll wait.
Yeah.
But of course he then died. And in a controversial move, Enter the Dragon director Robert Klaus finished the film using a lookalike, or actually a couple of lookalikes, and archive footage of Lee from his other films with a new storyline and cast. And that version of Game of Death was released in 1978, 5 years after Lee's death.
He is an international superstar. They call him a living legend, but the woman he loves belongs to the mob. And now, they're out to own him.
Don't be a slow learner, Billy.
Billy!
If they can't buy him, they'll have to kill him.
Billy!
You don't have too many choices.
A final warning.
And so begins the Game of Death. Columbia Pictures presents the immortal Bruce Lee in his greatest motion picture adventure, Game of Death. Starring Gig Young, Dean Jagger, Colleen Camp, Hugh O'Brien, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as Hakim. It begins as a matter of principle. It becomes a matter of survival.
Before and after.
As the undisputed master of the martial arts becomes a master of disguise and the champion of the Game of Death. This is the final film of Bruce Lee. 4.5 years in production with an international all-star cast.
You lose, Carl Miller.
Bruce Lee single-handedly takes on an underworld army and fights for his life in the Game of Death. The final film of Bruce Lee. game of death.
So one thing, Gig.
Gig Young. So it's not a name that's carried on, is it? Gig?
No. And two, Colleen Camp, who was Yvette, the maid in Clue.
Clue.
Yeah.
There you go.
Great film.
So the cobbled together final version of Game of Death only features 15 minutes of actual footage of Bruce Lee. In the revised film, Lee's character is redubbed as Billy Lowe, a martial arts movie star who is shot by a would-be assassin. A fragment of the bullet, funnily enough, passes through his face, leaving him in need of plastic surgery which alters his facial features. Billy fakes his death and adopts a disguise to exact revenge on those who've wronged him. And for the vast majority of the film, the role of Billy Lowe was shared by a couple of other actors.
And to the point where they sort of cut out his face and then pasted it on the scene.
So there is a scene which takes place in Billy's dressing room where a cutout of Lee's face, this wasn't even like special effects, literally like a paper cardboard cutout of Bruce Lee's face was taped to a mirror covering the stand-in's own face, and someone just sort of stood in front of a cutout of Bruce Lee's. They might as well have just had like his face on a stick and held it in front of their own. The plot of the film also, because he's in disguise, Billy Lowe, the plot of the film allowed the new doubles to spend much of the film in disguise, usually involving false beards and large dark sunglasses that obscured the fact that they bore little resemblance to Lee. This film is often considered in quite poor taste because not only is it sort of using Bruce Lee's uncompleted footage, but at one point in the movie, real footage of Lee's corpse in his open-topped casket from his funeral is used to show the character Billy Lowe faking his death.
And that is Lowe.
That is Lowe.
It's Billy Lowe.
Very good.
Thanks.
Very good. Cheers. But unfortunately, this was only the start of Bruceploitation, as it is genuinely known. So Bruce Lee's Hong Kong and Hollywood films, they had elevated the Hong Kong martial arts film to a new level of popularity and acclaim. So they sparked a surge of interest in Chinese martial arts in the West throughout the 1970s. And there was a sort of brief fascination with martial arts with songs like
Kung Fu Fighting.
Yeah. And TV shows like Kung Fu.
Like Monkey.
I think
was that later?
I think Monkey might have been later. And it might have already happened.
I don't know.
We had a beer. So Bruceploitation, which is a real thing, refers to the practice by filmmakers, mostly in sort of mainland China, Hong Kong and Taiwan, of hiring Bruce Lee lookalike actors, or Lee-alikes, to star in imitation martial arts films in order to cash in on Lee's success after his death. Apparently when Enter the Dragon was such a huge hit, Hong Kong studios feared that a movie without Hong Kong's most famous star wouldn't be financially successful. So they decided to play on Lee's international fame by making movies that vaguely sounded like the sort of movie Bruce Lee might have done, with actors who looked a little bit like him, changing their screen names. So these guys had like full careers as sort of these Lee-alikes. So they had names similar to Bruce Lee, such as
like Loose Lee.
No, but not far off. So like Bruce Lai, L-I, Bruce Lay, just L-E, Bruce, I guess this is Lai, L-A-I, Bruce Lay, L-E-I, Bruce Lai, L-I-E, and Dragon Lee.
So this is like, you know when you see those shitty rip-off movies, and it's like Transmorphers, or whatever it's called.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
they look like the poster.
Yeah, and so the DVD always looks the same. They're always hoping someone will accidentally.
Yeah, so if you go to Blockbuster back in the
or
day,
HMV back in the day,
you would look at it and go, "Oh, that's probably
Transformers.
That's probably Transformers. I'm just going to pick that up and go and go, what's Transmorphers?"
I always think with those sort of films, the only way they can ever make any sales is just sort of hungover people accidentally picking them up. That's the only way.
Or if they're on Netflix now, I guess you accidentally put it on and go, and then 30 seconds in, stop. Like,
what have you achieved?
I mean, it counts as a view, I suppose.
Well done. By the way, if you listen to just 30 seconds of a 2 Geeks episode, it does count as a listen, so we don't care.
Yeah,
Thanks.
cheers.
Thanks for that. So some of these films were advertised as genuine Bruce Lee movies, when in fact they were not. And some of the movies, such as Re-Enter the Dragon, Enter 3 dragons, Return of Bruce, Enter another dragon, Return of the Fists of Fury, or Enter the Game of Death, all genuine titles. They were sort of rehashes of Bruce Lee's classic, sort of unofficial remakes. Other of these films told Lee's life story and explored his mysteries, such as Bruce Lee's Secret, and this is a classic wiki copy and paste. A farcical rehash starring Bruce clone Bruce Lee in San Francisco defending Chinese immigrants from thugs.
What were they thinking?
Exit the Dragon, Enter the Tiger, where Bruce Lee is apparently asked by Bruce Lee to replace him after his death, and Bruce's Fist of Vengeance. Other films include The Clones of Bruce Lee, where clones of Bruce Lee are portrayed by some of the actors I just listed. They're created by scientists and they do a bunch of kung fu. Let's have a look.
Oh dear.
The Clones of Bruce Lee.
The respected and loved Chinese superstar Bruce Lee has just died.
Starring Dragon Lee, Bruce Lee, and Bruce Lee.
Suddenly and without warning, he fell into a coma today.
The Clones of Bruce Lee brings a new dimension to martial arts films.
Scientists and police made a momentous decision. They would create the clones of Bruce Lee. These identical specimens of the late Bruce Lee are trained in all the martial arts through scientific techniques. The Clones of Bruce Lee, starring Bruce Lee, Bruce Lee, Bruce Tai, and Dragon Lee.
So that film, The Clones of Bruce Lee, very much the Expendables of Bruce Lee impersonators. What I like, they call them identical specimens. Not only are they not identical to Bruce Lee, they're not even identical to each other. They don't even look the same as each other.
But it's things like this that have elevated, even to the point, so by the time that we were born, and we were aware of things, you hear of Bruce Lee, and it's things like this that have elevated him to like a weird godlike type figure. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. He's almost mythic.
Yeah,
so
that's
true.
You forget that he was a real person.
Yeah,
sort of like Bob Marley has that sort of essence about him.
Yeah,
it's sort of that thing of you look at him and go, yeah, he was just a guy who did stuff, but he's like thought of in such a high regard. That he's
almost a character.
Yeah,
I know that's true actually. There was also The Dragon Lives Again, in which, and unfortunately I couldn't find any clips from this, but in this film, the soul of Bruce Lee, played by Bruce Lung Su Lung, goes to the underworld. The deceased Lee meets a number of pop culture icons, including Dracula, James Bond, Clint Eastwood, The Godfather, The Exorcist, and Popeye.
Didn't see that coming.
And then,
oh dear.
And then, this might be the worst one, I think. There's a film, genuinely, called Bruce Lee Fights Back from the Grave. Bruce Lee Fights Back from the Grave. And in the opening... Here we go. The opening sequence shows Bruce Lee, played by an unknown imitator, leaping from his grave after it's struck by lightning.
Let it go.
While this and the title imply a story involving Bruce Lee returning from the afterlife in order to do battle, the rest of the movie involves a plot that has nothing to do with Bruce Lee.
It's just that one scene.
It's a one scene.
Alright.
Yeah.
Unleashed to wreak vengeance on the evil ones who brought about his untimely death. 5 years ago, Bruce Lee, king of Kung Fu and undisputed master of the martial arts, was buried, but not before making a deal with the Black Angel of Death. Now, his tormented soul returns as Bruce Lee fights back from the grave.
Damn you!
He faces every contest, the fighters, the killers, the mobsters, the slime of the underworld, the bad and the beautiful. Bruce Lee fights back from the grave. Mysteriously, through his immortal inner forces, Bruce Lee made a spiritual agreement with the invincible and unbeatable Black Angel of Death to free him from the torment and prison of his grave. Can Bruce Bruce Lee defeat the invincible and unbeatable, the Black Angel of Death? See if you dare. A supernatural action American movie starring Bruce Lee. The dragon never died. He was just waiting for the moment when he could return from the grave to seek revenge. Warning, due to the constant action seen in this picture, the producer requests that persons under 17 be accompanied by an adult. Bruce Lee fights back from the grave.
God almighty, that's dreadful.
I don't know.
5 years.
I don't know why anyone thought that was acceptable at the time.
And I love how it's called Bruce Lee literally fights back from the literal grave. That's the film.
You literally see him in the trailer punch his way out of his own...
But wearing all the gear.
I don't know if...
He was buried in all his like Bruce Lee gear.
I don't know if it was a different time. I don't know if it was because, as you say, he sort of became very quickly almost like a mythic figure, so they thought it was okay. But imagine now, Heath Ledger back from the dead.
Yeah.
There'd be uproar, and rightly so.
Yeah.
It's outrageous, those films. I don't know how they ever got away with it. Imagine his family watching that. It's so outrageous.
Bloody hell.
But funnily enough, Bruce, because he was a canny guy, he had predicted almost this wave of imitators. So he said at one point, ever since the Big Boss, there seems to be a hot wave in fact, of finding another Bruce Lee among all types of people, but particularly in the martial arts. Forgetting about whether or not they possess the ability to act, just so long as they can halfway decent kick or punch and know a few tricks or gimmicks, the producers will make them a star.
I mean, Steven Seagal's done that for years.
And Bruce said, now let's stop here. Is it that simple to become a star? I can assure you it's not that simple. Also, I can tell you that as more of Bruce Lee's films are shown, referring to himself in the third person,
well, he's allowed to.
He's allowed. As more of Bruce Lee's films are shown, the audience will soon realise, not only in acting ability, but in physical skill as well, they will see the difference. Of course, it's only movie making, people will say, but certainly the audiences are not so insensitive, so as not to be able to see and judge for themselves. So Bruce saw it coming.
Yeah.
Saw it coming. And despite the copycats, and despite wild speculation and rumours that he might have faked his death, Bruce Lee lies in rest at Lakeview Cemetery in Seattle, and a bronze statue in memory of Lee has stood at the Avenue of Stars in Hong Kong since 2005. Almost unbelievably, it's 45 years since he died. This July, he would have been 78 in November. So that is more or less all I've got to say on Bruce Lee. I don't want this episode to drag on much longer. But any final thoughts?
Yeah, just a couple of things. One of my all-time favourite... I mean, Twitter's only been going for like 10 years, so I say all-time.
All-time. Of all time.
All-time Twitter... My favourite Twitter handles is this weird Twitter feed.
Oh, I know.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
The toys.
Yeah, so it's his the handle is Sue Ki Chai, so Sue, like Peggy Sue, KICHIII. So search that one, and then it's always Freddie Mercury and Bruce Lee just having a laugh. But I don't know how he made the toys or where he got the toys from, but they're fantastic. Obviously it's radio, so I'm going to show you it.
They are good.
Here's just an example. So we're seeing Freddie Mercury, and he's trying to play a video game.
He's trying to play on his SNES.
Because it's all static. The next one is Bruce Lee turns up going,
I'll sort it.
I'll fix it. And Freddie's like, oh, please, bro, can you? and then he's like, what? And then he puts it in. Working. Yeah, what are you worried about? Super Mario Brothers 3. But honestly, find it. It's absolutely hilarious.
Let's go. I would absolutely watch a sitcom about Bruce Lee and Freddie Mercury living together.
Silent comedy of just them having a laugh.
Yeah.
And also, have you heard of the game Hong Kong 97?
I have not.
Right, so it came out in 1995. Why it's called Hong Kong 97, don't know. And it's known as one of the worst games ever made.
Well, from the start, it sounds pretty futuristic. 1997 in 1995.
It was apparently made in a week. It has gained a cult following in Japan and Taiwan for its notoriously poor quality, including copyrighted images. It has been ranked as kusoji, which literally means shitty game. A game considered so bad it's good. I'll just tell you the plot. I'll show you this is the front cover. So let's describe that.
Well, okay, so it's there's the title Hong Kong 1997. There's a picture of Bruce Lee doing a kung fu kick. And then above that is just some dude having a great time above him.
So the plot is, the game is set around the transfer of sovereignty over Hong Kong in 1997.
That's why, 1997.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So people from the Chinese mainland started immigrating to Hong Kong and greatly increased the crime rate. As a countermeasure, Chin, in brackets, the picture that you see in the game is Jackie Chan in his Wheels on Meals appearance. I guess that's a film.
Mm.
An unspecified...
Or an ad campaign.
Yeah, so it's Jackie Chan, and it's said he's an unspecified relative of Bruce Lee.
Okay.
It's hired by the Hong Kong government to wipe out all 1.2 billion people in China. One man. So one man, who's Jackie Chan in the game, who's just a relative of Bruce Lee's on the front cover, to wipe out everyone.
Forget the one child rule.
Yeah.
How do we decrease population in China? Kill everyone. Jackie Chan kills everyone.
But meanwhile, in China, research was underway to bring the dead Tong Xiaoping, who's the guy in the top right corner, back to life as the ultimate weapon. When the game was released, said guy was said to be dead in the game, but he was still alive. However, he did die months after the handover, 1997. So
spooky.
Ooh. So, highly recommend just trying to find videos of that on YouTube and the like, because it's absolutely hilarious.
Baffling.
Yeah.
Well, for more amazing trivia nuggets like that, you should check out all of our previous episodes on our website, which is 2geeks2beers.com. We're also on iTunes, where you can rate us and review us 5 stars, or unleash my green belt karate skills on you. Wow.
Also, go to our social channels at 2geekscast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Lots of lovely pictures of our face and beer. So there's sort of a kind of tangential link from Bruce Lee to what we're doing next time.
I mean, if you're thinking of kung fu experts outside of Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan,
who else is
obviously
there?
the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
On a level, I would say.
Yeah. So we're going to delve into the history of the Turtles, which is it's more mental than you think it is. There's a lot out there. So turtle power next time.
TMNT.
Yes.
Next time. Go Ninja, go Ninja, go. So I'm pretty happy with the episode. I thought it flowed more than it crashed. And to play us out, what else? It's the iconic theme by Lalo Schifrin from Enter the Dragon. So thanks for listening, and see you next time.
Cheers.
What was that? An exhibition? We need emotional content.